So the sorting stage after wash and dry is kind of what I'm looking at now. This is my active pile, so I'm pulling a handful at a time from the bin up to the desk. And then I have four main categories over here. I'm doing plain bricks, slopes, windshield, wall kind of elements, the cupboard and storage elements also in there, some tires and wheels, axles, that kind of thing. And then over here I have the plates and tiles and the modified bricks. And then there's also a little pile going right now for miscellaneous. So just a little bit of a streamlined process where I'm doing this in stages instead of all at once. My actual final stored parts are very individualized. Like this entire bin is 1x1 round bricks. So yes, at some point eventually I will have the 1x1 round bricks sorted all the way out from the modified bricks. But going from just a bin of random pieces to that sorted stage, the final sorted stage, there's a little bit of in between. And specifically for this time, when I'm going to be making a list of parts on Rebrickable to have this inventory, I like to have these groupings. So what I'll end up doing once I have this all the way sorted out, I'm about halfway through right now, is I'll take each grouping at a time on Rebrickable and work my way through that. So I'll probably do all of the specific piece types at a time, work my way through the colors, and then move on within a group. And then at that point is where I have each individual piece type sorted out after that. So yeah, a little bit of an in-between process, just looking at it. It helps to have some empty bins and some desk space. This is not as much as I would like to usually work with, but it works for this size of a lot. I realized I called this a small lot in the last video, even though it's about 700 or 800 pieces. So to some people that might not be a small lot, but keep in mind that coming up here pretty soon, I'm going to be diving into the major project of my job lot, which is an estimated 30,000 pieces. So compared to that job lot, which I've looked at in a short series last couple months, this is a pretty small lot and very manageable in terms of creating a digital inventory, which is kind of the example I wanted to give you guys for this specific case. Honestly, I don't think I'll be doing a digital inventory for the job lot just because it's such a daunting task of manually entering 30,000 individual pieces into that platform, which is Rebrickable for me. Some people use Brickset. Some people use Bricklink. There's lots of ways to kind of handle an online inventory of your Lego parts, and I'm not anywhere complete in terms of my entire collection being inventoried, but that is something I've started working on this year in 2020. And for these smaller orders that I'm getting in of a couple hundred pieces, give or take, usually looking at stuff under 1,000 pieces, it does take a chunk of time to get all of that entered in manually, but to have that reference, that is something that I can pull up and use down the road might be handy. In fact, I have already used the lots that I have inventoried. I've already used those lists a couple of times already. So that tells me it's something worth doing, at least for me, the way that I like to handle just keeping track of the Lego that I have. It comes in handy when you're looking at building a project and you need to know what specific pieces you might need to order to complete the project. So if you're needing 20 1x6 white tiles, it's very useful to know how many of those you already have so that you could place one order or one or two orders from Bricklink to be able to get to that 20. So if I already have 15, I only need to buy 5. And if you don't know how many you have, you end up buying 20 1x6 white tiles, even though you already had 20 of them in your collection, and then you're just spending money that you don't need to spend. Depending on how you guys stock up on pieces for your project, that may or may not be useful to you, but I know that's what I like to use inventories for, and that's one of the reasons I am putting so much effort into actually going through and manually adding each individual piece out of hundreds of pieces on these online websites where you can make an account and kind of have access to that stuff. So yes, that will be coming up pretty soon once I have these sorted all the way out. I'll start that process of actually creating that inventory of pieces. Again, this is specific to the pieces I bought at a hobby store, so this isn't just a random sample of my collection. This is a specific purchase. And the other thing I'm going to be doing with this inventory is doing a little bit of price comparison, like I mentioned, which will get pretty interesting, as we will see, because the estimator on Rebrickable uses the new value from Bricklink, and these are all used, so I'll still be cutting that down quite a bit. But even after cutting that in half, or 2/3, or however you would price a used versus a new brick, it still is surprisingly high value for some of these hand-picked pieces. And like I was talking about in the previous video about this lot, this is a couple hours worth of time at the hobby store going through and picking out specific Lego parts that I wanted to have on hand and that are harder to find in sets, that if you would to go on Bricklink to buy these specific parts, might cost you a little bit more than the average Lego piece. And that's what I'm looking for at a hobby store, where specifically this hobby store sells by volume. So very, very useful method to get those uncommon elements, and really working to my favor in this case, because Central Iowa, there's not a lot of other people going and hand-picking elements from this hobby store. So a little bit of an advantage for me there, just location-wise, coming into play. And coming up, we will start taking a look at how to get this stuff set out on Rebrickable. Just wanted to look a little bit at the process of, actually getting this sorted into groups and categories before going through onto Rebrickable, because it will matter. It will come into play. The way that I try to be a little bit more efficient is to do all the pieces at once of a specific type and then go through the colors. So we'll look at that next.